The information provided on Dr. Tom Roselle Live by Dr. Tom Roselle, D.C., interview guests, show co-hosts, or substitute hosts is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. It is for general information purposes only. Information from this broadcast should not replace the appropriate consultation and examination process by a licensed physician. Always consult your own physician prior to changing any current medical directive or prescription.
Hey everybody, Dr. Tom Roselle here, and we have a great program on live stream for you today. Hope you enjoyed the radio program and you joined us to continue the process. A little different, a little off what we usually get into, but those of you who know me and you've heard me lecture, and regardless of where it is, you know that I go to the place of really trying to understand why the body works the way it's supposed to, the vibrational elements. And in doing that, you go way back. I mean, in antiquity, if you will. You know, there's one thing that's been consistent in natural health care is the application of our environment, of what's around us. Everything from the sun to the water to the air, living in an ambiance that is supportive and not destructive, but also importantly, all of the things that were given to us naturally. And what we're going to talk about today is something very amazing that we've used in our practice, but not at this level. We continue to find outstanding applications and outstanding people. And I'm going to introduce somebody to you that, in my opinion, is probably sitting at the top of the mountain when it comes to the topic we're going to discuss. And what we're going to talk about is flower essences and how they impact the body physiologically and what they do and what they stimulate and so forth. And just the observations, if you will, over a period of hundreds and thousands of years. Having said that, I'd like to introduce a very dear person, somebody who I think the world of, Katie Hess. Hi, Katie. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Tom.
You know, Katie, you've got an amazing background, and I can sit here and just do check marks. But you know, how did you get involved in flower essences? I mean, you're living out in Phoenix area, and I got to come out and see you again because my granddaughter's out there at University of Phoenix, and so I can do a double dip. I can see her and see you, both amazing women. But tell us a little bit about your background and what motivated you to get into the area of flower essences.
Yeah, I was actually living in Mexico at the time. So I graduated college, left the country, did some traveling, lived in different countries in Europe, traveled through Asia. And at the time, I was in Mexico doing some volunteer work, trying to figure out what I really wanted to do, you know?
Yeah, what do you want to do when you grow up, right?
Right, with a sociology degree. And so what I did was I studied, in all my free time, I studied as many forms of natural medicine that I could get my hands on. And in the late 90s, Mexico had so many cool things going on. I'm sure it still does, where the US was still kind of behind times. And I ended up running into an expert in flower essences who was from Madrid, Spain. And he would come to Mexico City multiple times a year to teach. And I learned two things from him. One was that every flower on the planet affects us on an emotional, mental, and energetic level, which is really cool. And then the other thing he said was that if we could get 3% of the world's population actively working with these remedies every day, it would change the future of the planet.
Change the whole vibration.
And I thought, you know, I don't think I really understood, Tom, until really probably the last few years what that actually meant. It sounded good, and I was like, I'm in. So, you know, so I learned as much as I could. I studied with him and several other apprentices. At a certain point, I realized I needed to come back to the United States. I saw clients one-on-one for 10 years. This is at a time like, you remember the early 2000s? Like yoga wasn't even cool then.
Right. Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's a little bit of a battle, but humanity has changed so much. In those first 10 years, it was really like, you know, I paid my dues. I saw lots of people individually. You put in your 30,000 hours, right? And you learn like what are people experiencing? What do they need more of? What do they need less of? And the results that I saw in people were so mind-blowing that I realized I needed to get it to a bigger broader public. I never thought we'd have products, but I added up, it was like, if I don't take vacations and I see as many patients as I can in a day, which you can probably relate to, I was like, be able to see 76,000 people. And that wasn't hitting anywhere near the 3% mark,
No, not even close, but it's a good try.
So, yeah, I mean, so at a certain point, I started collecting my own flower essences, and we started bottling them up together so that we could scale this whole process of helping people cut through self-limiting patterns and turn up the volume on their true nature, on their potential, and who they really are meant to be here.
Katie, we've used flower essences, and even going back into the day growing up, I'm first generation to this country. I'm Sicilian. And my grandmother would treat me with all kinds of different things. I mean, she would go out and she would bring flowers into the house, and she would take them and actually rub them on our skin for different things, right? Nature provides its own remedies across the board for everything. And the energetic platform, and depending on where they're grown and the environment that they're grown in, has a huge impact to the effectiveness and the energetics that impress the body. What have you noticed relative to the emotional platform over a period of time? You talked about in the 2000s and things moving forward over the last 23, 24 years. And even before that, I'm a child of the 60s, right? So I grew up with some really crazy times, and nothing new to the environment that's going on today. It's just an extension of that. And it's more known simply because of the fact that we have better media. But with that comes a vibration that begins to create ugliness and an energetic within the body that demeans, depletes, breaks down. But people will leave and they go to mountaintops and they go to the waterways, and because they know the ion levels are much higher, and it helps. It begins to reconstruct them. But all of that to say, plants and flowers and so forth do that, even on a much, much more broad spectrum basis. Talk to me about that just a little bit, because you're the master. I mean, you have 30,000 hours or 70,000 hours of work. And at the end of the day, that really, truly makes you a master. So for our listeners, how does that vibration, we know ions do, but how do the flower pathways impact people?
Yeah, you can look at it from a variety of ways. I mean, you started off talking about your grandmother and the wisdom that she had. You can look at elders, and you can look at all cultures on the planet. For thousands of years, they have been recommending people to drink the dewdrops on the tops of flowers. You see that in Australia with the Aborigines sucking the tops of the bush lollies. You see that in the Himalayas when you'd have people do solitary retreats in caves. They would survive from the concentration of flowers and gemstones. You see doctors in Europe prescribing their patients to go out every morning and drink the dew. You see it in South America, you see it in India, you see it in all cultures. What did they know that we didn't know, right? And then you see in the 40s when there was an allopathic or a Western doctor by the name of Dr. Edward Bach. And, he got discouraged with the Western system. And so then he studied homeopathy. And then he got discouraged with that system, and he just turned to his backyard and the flowers, and he figured out a way to scale the dewdrops. Why were dewdrops so important? And you think the life force of flowers can be stored in water, and it's catalyzed by the sun. Like, that sounds all a little bit woo-woo. But if somebody had said, hey, Tom, when you get older, you're going to carry around a box in your pocket, and it's going to emit invisible waves that you can't see. And all the very most important pieces of information of your life, your secret messages, your poetry, your music playlists, your business, all your communications, photos, videos, grandkids, everything that means something to you is going to ride on these invisible waves through space that you can't see, like a magic carpet, and move, millions of miles across. Like, do we even really understand how that works to this day?
Can't see it, but we know it's there.
We know it works, right?
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, we're communicating this way.
Yeah, you're there, I'm here, and we're thousands of miles away. But the amazing thing, you talked about Dr. Edward Bach, and in 1930, and one of the stories was that he was watching animals, and when they were afraid or they were running away from fire or they thought they were going to be eaten by another animal, they would go to certain plants and they would lap the dew off the leaves, and it would calm them, and that obviously triggered the Bach flower remedy, pathways. But in your work, we've used them enough now with our patients that there's some of the most impactful applications that we've ever used. And, we're using more and more of them now because of very specific thought processes and trying to work through the emotional platform, as you will. And it seems to have an incredible impact. Our observations, we had a young child the other day that was incredibly angry at this child's father. And child's about 5 years old, 6 years old. There was an emotional abusive pattern there. And so we tested some of the flower essences that you had sent, and without having the child pick from your charts, I wanted to see if muscle function response testing would come up with what the child would identify later. Katie, it was right on. It was straight, one supported the other. So we started using it, and this child, within about 3-4 days, made an unbelievable shift. The mother called me, texted me, and said, "What did you do?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "What did you do to my child?" I said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "Yeah, he's just so completely different. He's calm for the first time." And she went on to describe what had taken place. So for that, I thank you, because we've used other platforms, and the effects can be quite significant, but I've never quite seen anything work quite this quickly. What do you, how can you explain the impact of one flower essence over the other? We know that the live forms are far better than something that's been processed. But in this particular situation, the impact is significant. Why?
Well, it's kind of like what we were talking about before with technology. You have cell phones and computers and Wi-Fi. The same thing is happening in Mother Nature. There is a botanical Wi-Fi. We can't see it. So when we're in nature, we're uploading and downloading and upgrading, and we're not like flying through space on a dead rock. Like, Mother Nature is alive and sentient, and there is like an updating of software constantly. And we as human beings in connection with the earth are also constantly updating, right? And it's more about just like getting more oxygen, or the greenery of the chlorophyll of the trees. It's like you're reducing your cortisol, you have less stress, you're increasing your white blood cells, and your immune system is improving. But there is this exponential effect of Mother Nature, which is like, if you spend one day in the wild, your body will retain all those positive benefits for a week. And if you spend 2 days in the wild, it'll last in your body for a month. So this exponentiality is actually what we're tapping into with the flower essences, and why they're so powerful, and why you see, like in the case of this child, and I've seen it too in my practice. I remember one mother bringing in her kid who suddenly out of the blue was like, "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you," and just felt such anger. And so, we put the child on flower essences for love and self-love. And just like you said, within a matter of a week, it's like, all the anger melts, and she turned into a little soft marshmallow, right? And crawled into her mom's lap, and that was that. I mean, it's like, when you look at symptoms, we tend to look at symptoms. In the world of energy medicine, I'm sure you would agree, the symptoms are the screen, and then there's the projector. So if you try to if you have an obstruction in a projection, for example, or you're at a movie theater, you're not going to go to the screen and try to clean it off. You're going to go back to the projection. And so what are, the projection is actually our energy bodies, our etheric bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, patterns we learned as a child, past life if you believe in past life, or collective consciousness patterns. So what we're essentially doing is we're going back to the projector and we're turning down the volume on the things that are not our true nature and turning up the volume on the things that are our true nature. That's literally stored in every cell. That's literally in every piece
That's
of
right.
DNA, right? Of how we are.
It's important to have the ability to communicate with a patient so they begin to be more receptive to the things that are being put out there. I mean, we're fighting against Fifth Avenue marketing, with the drug companies and, do this, just like we went through these crazy last 4 years with all the stupidity that was put out there and people were lied to on an ongoing basis. And so they were reprogrammed, if you will. The There's a commentary that I had embraced. I heard another doctor, I think Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he said the modern definition of mysticism is science. And even though that we do things that they look very mystical, somebody says, how can a flower heal you? How can being around a mountaintop do anything for you? Well, there's a way of defining that. When you understand the energetic platforms, things, and how everything is hand in glove and it works together and it has a vibrational match or it has a repulsion. The same thing occurs with the amazing work that you do. Katie, how do you process your flower essences? How do you come up with the applications and so forth? Purely observation, or do you have a very specific way that you're able to combine things, and because of clinical experience that they show up in a very understandable format, at least for you?
In the beginning, it was more around clinical applications, so just, multiple consultations, seeing what people needed. And it was like in the beginning, we need to be stabilized. Just get rid of my stress. Just help me sleep. Just give me more love. Can you just make me laugh more? Can I just get my taxes filed? Help me get stuff done. It's kind of a more
Oops.
intermediate thing, or immediate. And then once we're stabilized, when our energy system is strong, then we can look at well, maybe I want to dig some stuff out of the closet. Or maybe I want to understand how certain things that happened to me in childhood affect the way I see reality today. Because none of us is seeing reality as it actually is. We're seeing through all these filters.
No, you see the reality you focus on.
So, and then over time, I would say a lot of different, things happen. It could be I had a really difficult experience. And then I would, I remember being just totally heartbroken in 2017. And then I thought, if I feel this way and I feel just so rock bottom, other people must feel this way. So if I create something that can solve my problem, then I'm solving lots of people's problem. So, I'd use myself as a platform of what needs to come out. And then, and then it was 2020 hit, and looking at how do we revitalize people's bodies? How do we kick out toxins faster? How do we heal the heart? How do we change the collective patterning that there's something about us that's dirty as humans, or that we're vectors? How do we enhance connectivity? And now in the last year or so, it's been more about recovery and empowerment. It's been about truth. So how do I love myself and nourish myself more so that I can be more committed to my sense of purpose and truth? And what legacy am I going to build while I'm here? So over time in my career, it's gone from developing things that are just sort of more immediate needs to more digging in the closet and understanding oneself and self-discovery, to really, what am I here to do on the planet? And what's really interesting is this year, the remedies that are coming out this year are about being absolutely fearless and courageous, and standing up as leaders and being able to speak our truth, purifying every last little weird conscious or subconscious fear that we have. So I see for the future of humanity, based on what flowers are like raising their hand right now, is that as a species, we will become much more empowered, much more courageous, fearless, and much less impacted by external influence.
Wouldn't that be nice? I mean,
Yeah.
every external influence is out there right now and pulling for everybody's attention on multiple dimensions. But that would be a blessed presence for all of us. That would be a great thing. You've had a tremendous impact on somebody that we both think the world of, Dareth Painter. And, Dareth she does multiple things in our practice, from being a health coach to a thermographer. She's a partner in another company I have called Leadership to Legacy. And, she came in and she has an intuitive sense about her that is really hard driven. But now with these, the essences that she's using with her clients and with our doctors and our teaching platforms, I'm seeing a shift with her that I haven't seen for some time. Which
What are you seeing?
I'm seeing more of a calmness. She's not reacting the way she was reacting. There was a lot of reasons for that. And some of those pieces still exist, but she's handling them at a much better level, which is a beautiful thing, if you will. Thank you. It's a good thing she's not in the room. She started throwing things at me. But that goes back for knowing somebody about 23 years. But it's all that simply to say that natural medicine, flower remedies are so impactful. They're so important. But I want to go back to part of the question that I asked you. What makes, from the plant to the process of bottling something? I'm sitting here in my office right now with your stuff, right? And again, I've used other flower essences, but these are quite significant. Why are those so much more powerful than other things that we've used? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm really interested.
I believe that this kind of remedy can only be as powerful as the intentions behind it. And I tell that when I teach a class every year to folks who want to make flower essences. I say, you can't just go out there and like pick something at random. You want to like dig really deep in your heart. Like, why are you doing this? And I think it's not just me either. It's like my entire team. We've got like 15, 20 people behind us who are matching the intention of the like depth and profundity of like, this is for all of humanity. That we know there are people in India that are struggling with something emotionally. There are people in Japan. There are people in Taiwan. There are people in Belgium, right? There are people in places that I don't even know about that are struggling in the same ways that we are, or more.
Yep.
And so there is this like depth of a wish to benefit, essentially. And then we get stories from people that inspire us even more. Like, we've had multiple practitioners, one in Australia, one in Wyoming, who've had nonverbal autistic children become verbal within 1 month of working with, we have a blend called Truth Teller.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Wow. That's incredible.
And so when then you hear those stories, and it's like it adds even more fuel to the fire, because you see that what your wish was actually could be corresponded by a really surprising result. And then it really kind of blows your mind in terms of like, well, then what is possible? We don't even know what's possible. This is better than what any of us thought.
That's right.
And I think then it starts to ping that part of you, for example. There's like this totally divine part of you that recognizes it. It's like, oh, I know what that is. I have that too. And then it's like this kind of beacon effect where all these lighthouses start turning up the brightness of their lights. And we recognize each other and become stronger.
That's a hard concept for a lot of people to really get their head around, but I think more and more people are beginning to understand that. The matched attraction of energetics you put out a electromagnetic wave that is huge. You attract to you the things that match that. So the only way that you can shift any reality is that you have to shift that electrical field, that vibrational platform. And a lot of these, you brought up an interesting point with this autistic child, is if you took 10 autistic children or a spectrum, is the application the same or is it different depending on the background and what's taking place? And I think I know the answer to that, but I'm asking you so our people that are listening can get a good understanding of it.
It depends. If their root cause is the same, then the method is the same. But if their root cause is different, then it would be a different application, maybe even for the same outcome.
Yeah, that's what we observe with anything that we do, whether it's straight neurochemical work, with the patient in front of us, neurostructural, whatever it is. There are no two cases that are the same. There's no cookbook. There's no straight up application. You have to take the person in this particular situation for where they're at, their background, the influences that they've had, the memories, the pass-throughs on a cellular level, and so forth, because it's hardwired. We come into this world as a genetic expression of our biological parents. And then we're influenced by whatever parenting that we have in addition to that. But that goes to the cellular level. And so now you got two pieces. You've got, the blueprint that you came in with, but now you've got the modification, the molding of what took place after that. And one could be great and the other one could be bad. And now you end up with a busted puzzle. But with this type of situation, if you go back to the platform that the patient was blessed with, if you will, energetically, and that we're all part of that force. And I'm being very gentle, so a lot of people will listen and not push away. If you can resolve the negative, if you can extract the negativity that has imprinted into the cellular level, suddenly you have a brand new person in front of you. You have a brand new experience of life, a reality that is different because our focus is different. But you're awakened on a different level, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I just find it so fascinating. Now, here's the other question that I have for you, and a lot of patients will ask: when you use a fluorescence and you get an impact, you get a result, and it's very palpable and observable, is it permanent?
Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. It depends on how long that pattern's been in the making and how long it's been solidifying in your system. So if I have a fear of loss and abandonment pattern that I've been really working on for 40 some years, it may not resolve itself in 1 month. Would I experience a relief from it? 100%. Do I need to take a particular remedy for maybe 6 months and consecutively to really uproot that? If it's been a long time coming, yeah. Are there certain patterns that we can just uproot within a couple of weeks? Yes, absolutely. Like, let's say you've been feeling really impatient lately. You could work with a particular remedy like inner peace, and within probably 3 to 5 days, wow, all of a sudden you feel so much more like spacious and peaceful. It just depends on your unique expression, as you will, how long that lasts. I do see when I work with people that, for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, there is a compounding effect. And there are things that really lock in permanently or that release themselves permanently.
Katie, is there a time of a year when I'll use the word harvest and process, much more powerful than others?
Not necessarily. I mean, you want to choose flowers that are in the ground that are at their full bloom point. So it depends on where you are in the world. Full moon and new moon, they'll typically be the strongest. But it's not so hard and fast. I mean, Mother Nature's pretty flexible. I think what I think is really interesting is that certain environments have certain lessons. So like if you go to Costa Rica, all the orchids we've collected from Costa Rica are uprooting some kind of like strange, irrational subconscious fear. The flowers from Iceland are all kind of like unique flavors of childlike wonder and curiosity. Southeast Asia is like prolific abundance and explosive growth. So each place in the world kind of has its special sauce, and varieties
Got it.
within that.
So an olive leaf from Sicily would be much more in your face and explosive than probably in the north. Yeah, I got it.
Probably.
Katie, this is fascinating. It really is. The more that I get into how you've produced these things and where you get them from and the vibrational patterns that exist that I know that exist in certain areas of the world, it's really getting me to perk up in a little different way. And I thank you for that. Appreciate it very much. This is fun. I'd like to do this again with you as we go through, the process of playing with them. I'll use that expression. Obviously in my world in applied kinesiology, I neuromuscle function response test virtually everything that we use with our patients, and we see how they affect the nervous system and organic function, and combine all of that hand in glove. But just so you know, we got rid of everything else we were using, and we're only using your stuff now. But thank you for that. I appreciate it. Katie, this was great. I really appreciate it. We'll do it again. And hopefully I get out to Phoenix and say hey and spend a little time with you. Like I said, I get to double dip. I get to see this blonde, blue-eyed, physics major at Arizona State University if I go out there and spend a little time with my granddaughter as well as you.
Oh, well, we'll be waiting for you.
Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.